Ahead of his presentation at the Precious Metals Investment Symposium being held in Perth on the 3rd and 4th of October, we're joined by Kirkland Lake Chairman and prominent stock picker, Eric Sprott. Eric, thanks for your time.
Well, David, good to be with you. I'm really looking forward to the conference.
You seem to have a growing interest in investing in Australian stocks and particularly gold stocks in Western Australia. What's driving this interest?
Well, that's a great question, and I feel very fortunate to be involved with this with Australia. I had it quite a while ago. Well, I've been an investor in Australia for quite a long time. I've owned many Australian companies, whether they're coal companies or gold companies. But more recently, I bought a company about 2 or 3 years ago called Crocodile that owned the Fosterville gold mine, and I'm sure most people there would be quite familiar with the progress of Fosterville. Crocodile got bought by Newmarket got bought by Kirkland, so now Kirkland owns the Fosterville gold mine. It's been a stunning success in the sense that the drilling has proven up huge ounces of high-grade gold. It has to be one of the most, if not the most profitable gold mine in the world. Just the other day, we announced more drill results from what's called the Swan Zone, and they were sort of outer worldly. So I think that we have a very good shot at increasing our reserves when we put out our reserve report as of December 31st, 18. And we're going to prove that Fosterville has quite a long life. Hopefully we'll find other Fostervilles or other Swans at Fosterville, so we could be around a long time. I've also got involved with Royal Nickel, and they've just announced their very major discovery at Beta Hunt. Even this morning they announced that they had found 24,000 tons in probably less than 200 tons of material, which is a stunning discovery. And that's been a very exciting company. It's gone up about 400% or 500% here in the last 2 weeks. I own just under 10% of it. And of course, let's not forget the Karratha gold play with Novo, Artemis, Kairos, Pacton. I've been involved in all of those. We've yet to prove our point there yet, but I'm sure looking forward to going down there and checking out the operation, see how well we're doing.
Just touching on the Pilbara conglomerate gold story, why do you think it's capturing so much attention from Canadian investors?
Well, it's very interesting that I can't imagine that Canadians are greater punters than Australians are, but one of the interesting things that I found with the Pilbara is that there's this potential to have, and I'm not saying that we have, but potential at billions of ounces if you believe in the precipitation theory, and that it's throughout the whole Pilbara. It could be a very large world's largest or second largest, rivaling Witwatersrand, a type of discovery. And maybe we're just more risk takers, but we've been involved with the gold mining sector probably more than any other country, investors in Canada. So that kind of possible fairy tale answer is something we're always looking for. And there's lots of potential there with any of those companies that they could find the next big one, and lots of people in Canada are prepared to invest on the basis that you put up X, and if you're right, you make 10 times X, and if you lose X, well, that's fine. That's just part of the game here. So we're prepared to do that.
Moving to the Pilbara and the conglomerate play, we are seeing bigger companies with bigger land exposure spending significant money being backed by large companies. Do you think this will bode well for the expansion and exploration of the conglomerate story in the Pilbara?
Well, so far, it's been mostly sort of small to medium-sized companies. But there are lots of very large Australian companies that already own land, tenements in the Pilbara. And I'm sure they're all very much watching what's going on. And other than, for example, Kirkland, which you mentioned, I'm the chairman, we took an interest in Novo. But so far, there hasn't been much else in the M&A side where somebody large has come in and taken a strategic position. And I think it's because Novo has not yet, nor has anyone else yet, proven, well, here's how we're going to define the resource, and here's how we're going to mine the resource. So I'm looking forward to going down there. I hope that we will have some results out perhaps around the time of the conference, and find out how we're going to mine this thing and exactly what the scope of it is. But I've noticed that lots of companies have announced they found lots of nuggets, including Kairos recently, Artemis recently, De Grey. Of course, Novo has found nuggets. So lots of people are finding things. We just haven't determined yet how we do this all economically. And I look forward to trying to find some answers to that while I'm in Australia.
How important is education to the conglomerate story? We're seeing in Australia a lot of investors don't quite understand the exploration model or how the conglomerate story will unfold, whereas Canadian investors seem to have taken to it a lot easier. Is education going to be key for a lot of these companies as they present their results to the market?
Well, that's a very interesting question, David, because when I read the various geologic reports about the Pilbara, I rarely understand them. I mean, they're so complicated as to how this might have manifested itself. And I would doubt that, 0.001% of the people who would have to read the various papers that have been written on it would truly understand it. And so, as happens in a lot of my investments, you have to go to the people involved who are geologists, who have a track record, and have them explain it to you, and you decide whether you're going to go for it. Well, luckily, I've had the experience with Quinton Henning, who's with Novo, of him being involved in some discoveries here in Canada. He was very much involved with myself in determining ahead of time that Fosterville would be a very unique ore body. So when Quinton said that there's a precipitation thesis that could have created, a huge manifestation of gold in the Pilbara, I was ready to believe him. And not that I could possibly understand how it deposed itself or how it moved around, but I pick up the words after a while. Not that I pick up the geologic words, but the difference between marine sediments and structure and precipitation. But it's for a guy like me who's been in the watched mining stocks for 50 years, it's very complicated. So for somebody new in it, it's going to be head spinning for a while. But to find someone that you can believe in and ask them the question and see whether you believe the answer and make up your mind whether you want to go with it or not.
Why do you think Canadian investors, and particularly Canadian companies, have gravitated towards the conglomerate gold story so quickly and strongly?
Well, I think it's because of our markets, and I really can't compare our market to your market because I'm not really haven't been in the Australian market for 50 years, but I've been in the Canadian market for 50 years, and I know that there's a great willingness on people's parts to try to find huge, evolving resource stories. And of course, we have the oil and gas business here, the uranium business here, the iron ore business, the gold metal business, the base metal business. And there's been discovery after discovery. And when they're successful, you can make 10 and 20 times in your money. And it's very appealing to investors. In fact, when I think of the whole resource sector, that's the one appealing feature to it, that you find something unique. And next thing you know, your stock's up 500%. And I'll use the example of Royal Nickel. I mean, 20 days ago, it was at 7 cents, and today it's at 42 cents. So it's up by 500% in 2 weeks. And that's one of the beauties of investing in resource stocks is somebody comes up with something big and significant, there's a huge return on it. And of course, we've experienced that also in Kirkland, which was a $5 stock a couple of years ago, and today it's called a $25 stock, simply because of both Fosterville and our Canadian operations. But that's the kind of return that you can get when you find a unique deposit of one sort or another.
Going back, as a junior analyst, what got you excited and interested in resources stocks to begin with? And what's kept you focused on these stocks and type of stocks and commodities for the last 40 to 50 years?
Well, it's kind of like watching the marijuana stocks now. if you're a young person, a 23-year-old, you're a Canadian, you're watching the cannabis stocks in Canada. I can't even tell you what percent they've gone up by, but it must be, thousands of percents that they've gone up by. And I would think if I was a Canadian living here, I'd say, boy, I want to catch whatever that next trend is. Okay, so that type of thing. And by the same token, I could analogize with resource stocks, where we've had some major discoveries, and investors have watched people make fortunes over very, very short times because they were in the right place at the right time. So I think it's just the history of this rapid success that draws people into the resource area.
Just touching on that, you've been a gold bull for many years. You've ridden the highs and the lows, and you've stayed true to the course. What's kept you so focused and a believer in gold for such a long time?
Well, of course, I invested in gold at the bottom back in 2000, 2001, and enjoyed the run from 250 to 1100. When the stocks went up, the index went up by 1700%. So I participated in that. From 11 to today, of course, we hit 1900. Now it's backed off to a low of, I think it was down around 1,000 something in early 2016. We've rallied a little from there, but I've always believed that precious metals, gold, silver, platinum, palladium, will always outlast currencies. And when I see a world that has zero interest rates and central banks printing money, I tend to reinforce my belief in that. Now, that hasn't manifested itself, and I happen to believe that the price of gold is determined in the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, and it's determined by the positioning of commercial banks who don't like gold and can force the price of gold down by their very, very deep pockets. And we keep seeing this rotation where they'll let it go up and make money going up, then let it go down and make money going down. And so you're kind of used to this. You say to yourself, well, sometime it's going to break here. You can't have guys short 1 billion ounces of silver when there's not 1 billion of ounces of silver to deliver, and someday they'll get caught up in it and things will happen very, very quickly. But even having that kind of long-term belief, which hasn't worked in the medium term, that doesn't mean that you can't find opportunities. You can find opportunities. I mean, as I mentioned, Kirkland's gone up by 400% or 500% here. Royal Nickel's done well. Novo's done well. I mean, there's so many different stocks that have done well if they find something unusual, even in a what is perceived as a downtrend in precious metals, which downtrend I believe ended in 16. We'll see. So there's always opportunity, no matter what. If somebody finds some big discovery, even if the price of the underlying product is going down, you can rest assured the price of that stock is going to go up. If somebody goes and finds 1 billion barrels of oil, whether the price of oil is 50, 60, 70, or 100, the stock's going to do okay. So that's what the opportunity is.
Eric, you've had an exceptional career, and many would say you don't need to keep doing this. But you seem genuinely excited by operational, company, and executive success. What gives you the greatest pleasure? A discovery, a company's success, or seeing an executive excel?
Well, for me, when I wake up every morning, I'm on a mission. And the mission is there a new one out there? Is there something that I should be looking at that the market doesn't believe, hasn't recognized, doesn't care about, and take a stand in it? And I do that with a great deal of regularity. Maybe once every quarter I'll find something that is kind of flying under the radar. And I've always thought that you're kind of looking around in the garbage dump and you pull something out, and through my process I brush it off and find, oh my God, it's a diamond, but it was in the garbage dump, and all I got to do is brush it off and in essence tell people, by the way, this is a diamond, and maybe bring people's attention to it. And through my being in the public milieu, I can talk about things. So for example, I can talk about Royal Nickel, I can talk about Fosterville, and of course I believe in these things and the numbers tend to support it. So if I find a new company X tomorrow and I'm in Australia in a week, and I want to say, gee, this one here looks pretty interesting, and here's why. You know that there's been a lot of experience and history behind it to suggest that it might have some credibility. So, and I tend to be a long-term investor. I'm not a trader. If I'm wrong, believe me, you don't get out. You have to be right to get out. So, but I'm willing to take that risk because the reward is so compelling.
Do you back the people or the project, one over the other, or in equal measure?
That's a very interesting question, because the textbook would always say, you know, you have to have great management. And one of my favorite expressions is, Mother Nature never knew who the management was going to be. Now, having said that, typically the guy who finds it figured it out. He unraveled it, okay? But you know, maybe he just got lucky and maybe he wasn't a good manager after all. But you know what? It's the resource that makes a stock up for the most part. Management can aid and abet that, or they can diminish it. You'd like both, obviously, but you got to have the resource before the management. I mean, you could say this guy's the brightest guy in the world, but if he doesn't go and find something, it's not going to do you any good. So they got to find the resource somewhere, and Mother Nature's left these resources hither and thither, and somebody's got to go find the darn thing. So that's it's a skill thing, but it's also luck. You know, some people have been known to drill someplace saying there's got to be something right there, and they miss it by a yard. In fact, the Kirkland Lake mine, Macassa mine, was found by an Australian, and the first guy who drilled it, he missed it by about a yard. And then ultimately, 25 million ounces have been produced in the Kirkland Lake camp, so Kirkland Lake Timmins camp. So you can miss it by a little. We've seen that happen in many, many places. So it's luck as well as skill.
Eric, thanks for your time, and we look forward to seeing you in Perth for the Precious Metals Investment Symposium being held on the 3rd and 4th of October. No doubt there'll be many people wanting to come along and hear your words of wisdom, or just as many coming to show you some great projects. We wish you all the best and look forward to seeing you in Perth.
Well, David, look, it's been fun. I look forward to conferences like this. I look forward to talking about stocks. I look forward to the questions. And I was there 2 years ago and had a great time, and very much looking forward to this October 4th session.